No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. Let's think about that for a moment. Imagine you decide to bike around the world. Along the way, parts of your bike wear down, break, and need replacing. Eventually, you might even replace every single part of it. So here's the question. Is the bike at the end of your journey the same bike you started with? It might look different, feel different, and it might even be completely unrecognizable. But is it still your bike? That is the central question of Theseus's paradox. The original story is about a ship made entirely of wood, which gets repaired and replaced piece by piece over time until it's eventually made entirely of metal. The ship still carries the same name, but to anyone who wasn't there to see the transformation, it might as well be a different vessel. This paradox raises big questions about the makeup of objects and the nature of time. If we change every part of something gradually, does it remain the same thing or does it become something new? But this paradox doesn't just apply to objects, it's also about people. Think about yourself, the person behind the screen. You have a name. Let's say your name is Kasim. That name seems to capture all that you are in one simple word. People might say, "That's so Kasim," as if your identity is fixed within that word. But are they talking about all Kasims you've ever been, or just the Kasim you are right now? Well, people, like objects, change over time. They come into your life like seasons and rarely stay the same. Even those closest to us, parents, friends, partners, change in ways that make them almost unrecognizable from who they once were. Sometimes these changes mean we drift apart. Think about it. Have you ever missed an old friend only to meet up and realize you've both changed so much that you no longer really connect? That's called growth. In that moment, you and your friend represent different parts of Theseus' ship. You've both changed, but somehow you're still the same people. How can a person's whole personality evolve while they still remain themselves? Well, we see this all the time. Stories of people who go from hardship to success, from obscurity to fame, like David Goggins or Mike Tyson. These people change so drastically that they might not even recognize the person they once were. This is the essence of Theseus' paradox. It makes us wonder, what keeps something or someone the same over time, even as they change? Are we defined by our pasts, by our names, or by something else entirely? You might have already figured this out, but Theseus' paradox relates to more than just objects in time and space. It relates to identity and how we perceive ourselves. It even challenges us to rethink the way we define our identity, not just in the traits and features that persist over time, but in terms of transformation. This idea extends to other areas too. How much of a percentage are your memories tied to your identity? If you lost your memories due to amnesia, are you still the same person, or just a hollow shell of the person you used to be? Even cultures are subject to this type of thinking. If a culture was to entirely change over a few centuries, can it still be classified as the same culture? Or should it be called something else entirely? Is the natural evolution of what gives something meaning part of that particular something too? If you have ever seen a mother look over photos of their now adult children when they were little, you might pick up on a few things that have stood the test of time. He was always so mischievous. She was always so stubborn. They loved painting even when they were children. And perhaps these children are not the same mischievous, stubborn, and creative people they once were, but somewhere inside of them, that part of them exists. Their affinity to mischief has matured into playfulness well into their adult life, or that tendency to be stubborn has given them conviction in everything that they do. And what love they once had for painting has meant that they put pride into what they produce. There are really two parts of this paradox, the literal part and the part that relates to who we are at our core. Every cell in our body is replaced over time, but our identity still remains. We mature into well-rounded adults, but at our core, we still have a few specific traits that define who we are. This brings up a part of human existence that, to me, is one of the most fascinating things to experience. How is it that we can have lifelong friends even if transformation is a natural process? I personally have the privilege of knowing my best friend for over 2 decades. But I know we actually have very little in common in our preferences, tastes, and even morality. How do we define its continuity? And in this instance, I think we are both still the ship of Theseus. Our friendship persists, but our parts have changed beyond recognition. This raises another facet of the paradox. Is the present you more real than the past you? And how do you consolidate the past and present within your identity? Truth be told, this is something I personally struggle with quite a lot. The things I did in my youth paint a picture of someone who was much more free. He traveled the world and was impulsive. He did what he wanted without regard for anyone else. Notice how I use past tense in that sentence. That's because the things I enjoyed in the past and the way I acted in the past, I would have very little patience for right now. At some point though, we all face a moment when transformation demands something more than gradual change. Sometimes we need to cut ties with our past entirely to fully embrace who we are becoming. This isn't just about leaving behind old habits or moving on from difficult experiences, it's about recognizing that clinging to outdated versions of yourself can hold you back. To truly grow, there comes a time when we must let go of the ship, or bike, or self that we once carried, and trust the process of becoming something new. It's not about erasing who we were, but allowing those pieces to serve as the foundation for the person we're trying to be. The past is a part of our story, but it doesn't have to dictate our future. This is where intention shapes destiny. Growth starts with our thoughts, and over time, those thoughts solidify into habits, and those habits mold our character. Eventually, our character determines our destiny. As the saying goes, thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, habits become character, and character becomes destiny. What we choose to focus on and nurture today determines the ship we will sail tomorrow. The past may shape us, but it doesn't have to anchor us. We are all Theseus' ship, steering toward a destiny we craft with every choice we make. The question is, what kind of vessel are you building?